for a flagship phone but don't want to pay a flagship price, the iPhone XR and Galaxy S10e are two of your best options from Apple and Samsung.
They both start at $750 and have comparable features and hardware. So, how do you choose if you're comfortable with either iOS or Android?
This is iPhone XR versus Galaxy S10e.
Let's begin with their design. The iPhone XR has a 6.1-inch LCD display, while the S10e has a 5.8-inch AMOLED screen.
They're both water-resistant with stereo speakers. The S10e has a headphone jack, while the XR only has a lightning port, so you'll need to use a lightning headset, dongle, or Bluetooth headphones. So the iPhone launched in October 2018, while the S10e is only a few months old. But that being said, the XR is the cheapest, and it's the newest iPhone that you can actually get for $750, unless you want to spend upwards of $1,000 on the iPhone XS or XS Max. So let's chat design. Lynn, what do you like about the S10e?
I like the S10e. It looks pretty sleek. It's small, which is my favorite thing because as someone with small hands, I have a pretty much a small grip, so this is comfortable to navigate and to stuff in like my jean pocket or purse or something like that. And it's basically the most elegant look you're gonna get when it comes to the S10 phones for cheap. And I know it doesn't look as luxurious as the iPhone XR, but I like that the screen is flat. I know it's kind of an old school look, but I kind of just miss that look. And I don't actually mind the whole OLED LCD thing. I know OLED isn't as bright when we looked at it side by side, but the blacks were really rich and dark, and I really like it.
Yeah, that's interesting because like a lot of people are a little bit wary about choosing maybe an LCD over an OLED. Really, is there ever going to be a situation where you're looking at them side by side unless you're us or you're showing friends your pictures on your phone? I mean, it's not that big of a deal, and I think side by side, I really liked the deep blacks from the OLED on the S10e, but I didn't miss it when I went back to the XR, and the XR is great for exactly what it does.
Another thing I like about the display is that it's a little bit sharper, the resolution is a little bit higher, and I also like the hole punch display. I know it was a little quirky when we first saw it, but it's kind of grown on me, and there's all these wallpapers that you can play with it and have fun with it.
It's cool, I like that. And the notch on the XR, I'm so used to it right now. I don't see it at all, so it's no big deal for me. When it comes to water resistance though, the XR is rated IP67, the XE is IP68. I haven't dunked the XE yet, although I really do want to. But I did take the XR to depths that it was not rated for, 8 times the rated depth. It did eventually die, but it lasted a very, very long time. So I think they are tougher than they let on.
Oh, and one last thing that I really like about the S10e is that it still has a headphone jack. I know it's an endangered species among like premium phones, but I like it because I still use my wired headphones and I don't want to run out and buy Bluetooth headphones, and I like the fact that I could charge and listen to music at the same time.
Get with the program, Lynn. Everyone's going wireless. It's okay, you can too. Trust me, I was like holding off for such a long time, and then I went wireless and my life changed.
I know. I'm just delaying the inevitable.
The iPhone XR has one 12-megapixel camera on the back, while the Galaxy S10e has a dual camera with wide-angle and ultra-wide-angle lenses.
For selfies, the iPhone XR has a 7-megapixel true-depth camera. The S10e has a 10-megapixel camera in the screen. Both of these phones take really good photos in the majority of situations. I think the dynamic range is pretty good on both of them. Sharpness is also good, and the exposure is pretty pleasing, especially when you're just shooting in daylight and general landscapes. Low light is a bit of a different story. The S10e is clearly stronger in this respect. Apple hasn't traditionally been that great with low light photography, and it is the same with the XR. It's not bad, it's just not as good as the photos you're going to get from the S10e out of the box with the default camera app.
I agree. The S10e just does kind of a better job at brightening up photos in low light, but unlike its other Android competitors, it doesn't have a dedicated low light mode that comes out of the box, but Samsung is rolling out an update to it. So that means later users can toggle between switching to an automatic setting and to a low light setting, which I'm looking forward to testing out. Another thing about these phones is that neither of them have a telephoto camera, so all of the zooming that they do is digital.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah, they're both kind of crap. I mean, the Galaxy S10e kind of zooms in a little bit closer, but both are pretty crappy at it.
Long story short, don't use digital zoom. When it comes to portrait mode, I think the 10R definitely takes this one. Edge detection is good on both of them. I think they both have a good idea of where to start the blur in the background and where your subject is, but it looks more natural and more like something that is from a DSLR from the iPhone XR than it is on the 10E. And also those weird kind of like wacky radial blurs and motion blurs and all that on the 10E, I'm not a fan of. They look really tacky.
Yeah,
and
a little bit cheesy.
Yeah, and the default level of blur is also not great. So sometimes you're sitting there and you've taken a photo on live focus and you're like, I can't tell if that is in the portrait mode or if it's just a regular photo and it's kind of slightly out of focus in the background. You can of course adjust it, but the default is not as nice as it is on the 10R. Disadvantage with the 10R though in portrait mode is that it does not take photos of anything but people. So no pets, no food, nothing else, just you and me. That's all it can take photos of.
And that's crap because I like pets and stuff.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I want portrait mode on everything.
Oh, speaking of portrait mode, also the front-facing camera on both phones take portrait mode photos. The S10E lets you toggle a bit for a wider perspective. It also has this beauty mode on by default, which I never use. Don't use it.
No,
it's like weird.
not.
But I agree with you. The iPhone XR does pull off portrait mode a little bit better, and I like the way it kind of warms up faces, skin tones, and the blur is a little bit blurrier, and it just makes it look more dramatic and just nicer overall.
So there's another element in the camera called Bixby Vision. I have never used it. Have you?
Yeah, no, I don't really use it. I know you can use it to like look up landmarks and look up businesses and maybe even like translate words. And it's similar to Google Lens, but like Google Lens, I use neither of them.
It's not a big selling point for me. What is a big selling point is the video quality. I think the 10R takes it, but the S10E really does give it a good run for its money. Video has traditionally been Apple's real strong point compared to any other phone camera. I think the Galaxy is getting fairly close. I think the 10R still looks a little bit more cinematic. The stabilization is a little bit better. And the audio is definitely great on the 10R compared to the S10E, but it's pretty close. I mean, I think for most purposes, both of these phones do a really good job.
The iPhone has Apple's own A12 chip, while the S10e has a Snapdragon 855 processor. While Apple doesn't disclose its iPhone's battery capacities, teardowns report that the XR has a 2.9 ampere-hour battery. The S10e has a higher capacity 3.1 ampere-hour battery.
So this is a great example of something on paper not looking so good, and then you test it out in the real world and it actually performs a lot better than you were expecting. In the case of the iPhone XR, we do a battery test on all of our phones and we run a movie on a continuous loop in airplane mode. The XR got to 20 hours of playback before the battery died. The S10e only made it to 17 hours, even though the battery is technically a larger capacity battery. So there you go, an extra 3 hours.
An extra 3 hours, that's a whole movie you could watch on your XR. That's endgame, basically. Yeah. Wireless charging is something I like on both phones, but the S10e has an extra feature that it can directly wireless charge other things like accessories. And I think it's pretty useful, but I don't know how I feel about letting some stranger zap my battery phone life as the Samsung commercials have you to believe.
Yeah, I don't know about sharing batteries with strangers, but hey, it's good to know that you have that feature if you're really in a pinch and you need it. So as for performance, the iPhone XR beat the S10e in 2 out of the 3 benchmark categories. If you want to see all the numbers, they're on the reviews on CNET. But does that make a real difference in the real world? I didn't find there was that much difference between them, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to like launching apps or quitting the camera or typing something on the keyboard, I didn't really discern any speed differences. And side by side, maybe we saw one phone do something a hair faster than the other, but in the end there was no consistent winner.
The iPhone XR runs iOS and it looks just like any other iPhone, while Samsung has refreshed its interface with a new look called One UI.
I'm very glad that Samsung decided to refresh the TouchWiz UI. Now it's called One UI. I was never really a big fan of TouchWiz.
Me either.
Then again, One UI hasn't exactly won me over. I still kind of think it's kind of ugly. Like the icons are ugly, the notifications don't really look that great. So if you're like me, I'd say download your own launcher, download your own skins and themes, and just make it your own, and it will feel much better.
When it comes to the digital assistant though, Siri versus Bixby, I mean, I don't really use either that much at all, to be honest. I'm just glad that you can remap that Bixby button on the S10E. That's great because I don't want to be calling up Bixby accidentally when I press on that.
Yeah.
I'd much rather it be something else. We all know that Siri is not great either, so I think the conclusion is use the Google Assistant because it works on iOS and
Use
Android.
neither of the digital assistants and get Google Assistant instead.
Top tip right there.
There are also other factors to consider when you're making your decision on which phone to buy, such as storage options and mobile payment systems.
For unlocking your phone, the iPhone XR has Face ID, and the Galaxy S10e does have Face Unlock, but it's not as secure as the iPhone XR, which you can use to authorize digital payments. If you want to do digital payments on the S10e, luckily there's a fingerprint reader on the side that intuitively doubles as a power button.
So speaking of digital payments, if you've watched any of our versus comparison videos before on phones and payment systems, you'll know that I do love Samsung Pay a lot just because it has the extra layer of magnetic secure transmission, or MST, which means that you can use the phone pretty much anywhere that you can swipe a credit card, even if it doesn't accept NFC payments. The Apple Pay interface and system only works with NFC contactless payments. Maybe it's not that big of a deal to some people, but for me, I really, really think that that's such a huge draw card of Samsung Pay. So kind of just want the iPhone with Samsung Pay. It's never going to happen, but hey, I can dream, right?
You can dream. Another way that these phones are different is storage options. The Galaxy S10e starts at 128 gigs, which is twice the amount of the iPhone XR, and it has expandable memory.
Huge.
So if you take lots of photos and videos, this is really important because if you run out of storage on the iPhone XR, then you have to go and buy Apple iCloud and pay that monthly fee, which is like, blah.
No one wants to pay extra if they don't have to. Love expandable storage. Let's talk about the elephant in the room though. I'm sorry, but the AR emoji on the S10e, I just look like that Snapchat gender swap filter. It's just so bad. Animoji is way cuter, or Memoji, way, way cuter. You can customize your Memoji. I don't really use it that much, but I'd like it when I have it.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's cute. So, decision time, Lynn.
Okay.
We have come to the end and we have to choose a winner. Which one is it for you? Is it the XR or is it the S10e?
I gotta go with the S10e. I like the size of it, it's small. I love the headphone jack, and I like the storage option. $1 per gig, it's better in value. And I just like that you could change the UI. I don't really like One UI, but you throw in your own launcher that you like, and it's great.
So for me, the simplicity of iOS I really appreciate. I do use Android and iOS, so I'm very flexible with switching between the two, and I think for me the XR is the better deal. I like the camera a lot more than the S10e, even though it does some great stuff. I think just overall it's just such a good all-rounder on the iPhone XR. The design feels a lot more premium, and it's kind of tougher than I was expecting. This is like the first iPhone I don't have to worry too much about like accidentally dropping, dunking in water. I feel like it's like almost life-proof. Almost. So we'll
Not
see.
quite.
Not quite, but it's getting there. So thanks so much for watching our versus of the iPhone XR versus the Samsung Galaxy S10e. Let us know which phone you thought won in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can also let us know too.